Hello, buddy. Welcome back to the Tin Man Score channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor, and today I'm reacting to my third and final scary storyteller today for you all. And the video that I'll be reacting to is 3 Terrifying True Library Horror Stories from the Nighttime Spooks channel. So without further ado, I'm going to turn these lights off, move the camera up here for you guys, and let's get this reaction on the road and in the bag, shall we? Okay, here we go.
When I was 14 years old, I volunteered at our local library.
Okay.
It was a pretty big library and was known for being very nice. My job was mainly to put books back on the shelves, but I did a little bit of everything. I usually worked on weekdays after school from 3 to 6 p.m. On one day, about 2 months into working there, I was putting some fiction books back on the shelves on one corner of the library. I saw a man approach me, and he had a big smile on his face. He had dark brown hair, was kind of skinny, and had a slight beard. I would guess he was about 30 or so. He asked me if I could tell him where psychology books were. I told him to follow me, and I walked over to the shelves that we had them on. As we were walking, he told me that he thought I looked lovely. I said thanks, and we arrived at the books, and then I walked away. I went back to work where I was before.
I always thought about maybe getting a job over at the library in our town, but then if I don't know where each book goes, I'll be like in disarray. But I'm glad this person was able to help this person find a certain section for a book they were looking for. But anyway, let's continue.
10 minutes later, the man walked near me again and told me he was leaving and waved goodbye. I couldn't tell if he was creepy or just a really nice guy. But about 2 weeks later, I got my questions answered. I was working once again and wheeling books on a little cart to be put back on the shelves. I crossed in front of the computer area, which overlooked a big part of the library. There was a bunch of desks where people could use the library computers. When I looked over, I saw the man from before, and we made eye contact.
That's a little creepy because the guy just said that he was leaving and he gave this person a wave goodbye, but he snuck back in there somehow just to scare the crap out of her. This is not going to be good.
He was just sitting at a computer, staring at me. I quickly looked away, but then I saw him start to wave at me. Then he got up from his chair and started walking towards me. I didn't really want to talk to him, but I decided to be nice. When he got to me, he said hi and asked how I was doing. Then he said that he's been watching me work the past couple of weeks, and he thought I was beautiful. He also mentioned that he comes here every day. I got really uncomfortable. There wasn't anything I could do. I just smiled and said thanks.
Okay, my mistake. He did come back when the library was open and not snuck in, but that would be kind of creepy. Somebody said, I've been watching you. I'd be like, that's a little creepy, dude. You just come in, look for a book or work on the computer, but not stare at the staff.
Then I told the man I needed to get back to work. That's when he asked me if I wanted to hang out with him when I was done. I told him that I was only 14 and I needed to be home. He asked me if he could drive me home. I told him no, my mom was going to pick me up. And then I told him that I thought that was weird. I think he got the sense that I was very uncomfortable, and he just said, "Oh," and then walked away. I was hoping that would be the end of him, but unfortunately, I noticed him there the next day as well. He was sitting at one of the computer desks again and just staring at me, but this time he wasn't smiling. It was really creepy. I did my best to ignore him and go back to work. When I finished that day, I went outside to wait for my mom to pick me up like I always did. Usually she was there right after I finished, but sometimes she would be late, and I would just sit outside at a little picnic table they had around the corner of the building. That was where I was when I saw the man leaving the library. I was hoping he wouldn't see me, but of course he did and walked right up to me. He still wasn't smiling. He asked me what I was doing. I told him my mom would be there any second. That's when he grabbed my arm and started walking me. He walked me around the building. I tried to resist him, but he was much stronger than I was.
Yeah, I had a feeling that he was one of those type of stalkers that once he saw her in a vulnerable position, he would go ahead and grab her and try to take her before her mom gets there. At this point, I'd be like, oh man, hurry up, mom. Just so he would let go and she get in the car and they get the cops involved.
We got to the parking lot, and I saw a car parked on the very end. I tried to get away, and I was struggling when I heard a loud car horn. I looked and saw my mom's car pulling into the parking lot. She was driving towards us and honking the horn repeatedly. The man saw this and then shoved me to the ground and got in his car quickly. My mom stopped her car and ran to me. Then she called the police, but the man had already drove away. Police arrived and I gave them as much information as I could. The man ended up being caught the next day, and I didn't have to worry about him anymore.
Oh, thank God the mom showed up when her life depended on it. Because I know that guy didn't want to deal with her mom yelling and kicking at him to let her go. But that was just so rude that he would just push her down on the ground and take off like that. But thankfully, when they called the cops, he was caught the next day. So now that she could work at the library at peace knowing that guy ain't coming back whatsoever. But let's get to story number 2 now, shall we?
When I was in high school, I worked at a library. My grandmother used to work there, so she was able to hook me up with a job pretty easily when I turned 16. The job was pretty easy, and being the only guy younger than 60 who worked there, I would mostly just do legwork, like setting things up and transporting books. The library itself was interesting because it was very old. It opened in the 1800s and had minor renovations and restorations done, but for the most part, it had an old building feel to it.
Sounds like a nice place to visit, a library with some historic charm to it, but it's got some modern updates along the way. But yeah, I'll probably be doing that too if I was working there at a library, because the older staff would just be more focused of doing paperwork in like the office or having arrangements done for special guests to come in for book readings or signings or handle checking people in. But anyway, let's just see where this guy's situation leads to. The situation is.
The library had 2 levels and a basement, which was mostly just used as storage. It wasn't that big of a building, but it maximized the space by having 3 levels. One day, I was asked to get some extra carts from the basement. I opened the door and walked down the stairs. It was very dark and messy down there. I always thought it was a little creepy. I turned on a little light that we had, and I saw a cart on the sidewalk. I walked over to get it, and as I was walking, I heard something fall across the room. It sounded like a book falling off of something. I looked over but didn't see anything.
Yeah, I've been wondering, is somebody on one of the aisles knocking books over, or somebody didn't place a book on the shelf right, and when somebody walked by, it knocked over by itself from a little vibration. I don't know. I'll just put that book back on the right shelf and then continue what I was doing. But if it happens again, I'll be like, okay, somebody's either hiding in here or it's ghostly activity.
So I walked over to the book and picked it up. It had been stacked on top of some other ones. But when I put the book back, I noticed there was a man hiding behind a box about 5 feet away. I could only see his legs and part of his back because he was hunched over behind the boxes. I just about had a heart attack. I pretended not to see him and quickly went back and got the cart to bring upstairs. Once I got upstairs, I shut the door and told my coworker Barbara, who was pretty much in charge. She didn't believe me at first and thought that I was joking. I did have a pretty good sense of humor, and I was known to joke around a lot, so I told her to come down with me and see. She came with, and we walked into the basement, but when we got there and looked around, we couldn't find anybody. We looked for a good 10 minutes. When we got back upstairs, I felt like an idiot, but Barbara told me she believed me because she could see how serious I was. I went back to work, and at the end of my shift, I was still really curious about what happened in the basement, so I went down again. I turned on the light, and this time, I saw the man right away. He was in the far corner of the basement, but he was standing up. As soon as the light turned on, he started to walk behind some more boxes. I kept standing there watching. I saw that the man had long hair and a dirty beard. He looked like a homeless guy. I yelled at him that nobody was supposed to be down here. He responded by grabbing a book and throwing it in my direction. And then he started charging at me. I shut the door and ran back up and told Barbara once again that I saw a man and he was dangerous.
Okay, that was really rude, but it seemed like this person didn't want to be found. But that is the rules. Nobody's supposed to be down there if they're not staff members. But it seemed like that person's out of his mind that he don't care if he hits somebody in the head with a book. It seems like.
She called the police. I watched the basement door the whole time to make sure the man would not come up. When the cops finally showed up, 2 of them went downstairs, and about 5 minutes later, they came back up with the man and took him away. He was a homeless guy that somehow got down there and had been hiding out for 2 days.
Figured. A homeless person. He should have known better not to make any noise or signs of his presence down there. Then he wouldn't have been caught. He probably would have been able to leave the library, just like how he got in. But I'm glad the cops came down there and arrested him, and hopefully they take him to a homeless shelter so he won't be breaking into places like this ever again. But that would be a crazy experience for sure. Almost getting hit in the head by a book thrown from a homeless person. If somebody tried to throw a book at me, I'll be like, all right, wise guy, last chance. You get out of here now, or I'm calling the cops. And if they want to keep on acting all aggressive, then they're going down with a fist.
When I was a little kid, about 15 years ago, I used to go to the library a lot. It was the early 2000s, so this was before smartphones and when the internet wasn't quite as big. My mom would take me and my sister to the library to get books and rent videos as well. I was probably 5 or 6 when this story took place. My mother took my sister and I to the library, and when we got there, we went to the kids section first, and then the rest of the library. It was a pretty large library, or at least it seemed really big to me when I was a little kid. I remember my mom saw an old friend she knew and started talking to her. After about 10 minutes, I got really bored and wanted to find a football book, so I walked away and started looking. I didn't know where to look, so I pretty much just walked around. Before long, I was lost, and I didn't even know where my mom was. I started looking at books and decided to just stay there until my mom would come and find me. I was sitting on the floor, looking at some old war book, when I felt a tap on my shoulder. I assumed it was my mom, but when I turned around, I saw that it was a man. He looked kind of old and was a little bit overweight. He asked me where my mother was. I told him that I didn't know. He smiled and said, "That's what I thought." Then he told me that she was ready to leave and had been looking for me.
Don't believe what he said about his mom was looking for him, is ready to leave. She would have been hollering out your name or walking down the aisles to find you herself and tell you that, not this strange dude.
He said that he worked for the library and he needed to take me to her. I believed the man 100%, and I followed him to go to my mom.
Bad mistake. You would have known if he was a library employee if he had one of them ID tags around his neck.
We walked through the library and right out the front door to the parking lot where I expected to see her, but the man kept walking and telling me to follow. We got about halfway through the parking lot when he stopped and put his hand on my back and pointed. "She's right over there," he said. I was confused because I couldn't see her anywhere. Then I saw him take out his key and press a button to unlock his car. Before I could realize what was going on, he literally picked me up off the ground and put me in the back of his car. I didn't have time to scream or anything, I was so surprised. The next thing I knew, I was in the back of the man's car, and he got in the front and started driving. He told me to be quiet and stay put, or he would hurt me. When he started driving down the road, I sat there thinking of what could happen, and I got really scared. He kept driving for about 20 minutes. I asked the man where we were going, but he didn't answer me. Instead, he said, "What did I tell you before? Be quiet or you get hurt." I kept my mouth shut after that. It was probably 30 minutes into the drive when I started to hear sirens. Then I saw flashing lights behind us. I was hoping that the man would get pulled over, and sure enough, When he pulled over to the side of the road, the police car did as well. Then the man turned to me and said that I had to pretend to be his son. But before he could finish his sentence, the police started yelling at the man to get out. I felt very good when I saw this. The man got out and was arrested, and I was returned to my mother. I'm very lucky that a witness happened to see the man putting me into the car, and when my mom couldn't find me, they were able to determine who I was with.
Well, thank God somebody noticed that you were walking out with a strange man and get in the back of his car. But thankfully, they got the cops involved and they pulled the guy out of his car and arrested him for kidnapping a child. I'm just glad he's okay. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on post notifications for more nighttime spooks content like this. This has been another successful installment of the Tin Man's Court channel. I'm your host, Jeff for Tin Man Taylor, and that's a wrap. And have a nice day.